everybody, it's Lynn from Subparplanning. I just thought I'd do a quick little video of how I make my own mini happy planner covers. So she did another video of my setup for February for this little fella. And so this is the original cover. This is the mini happy planner Miss Maker. And I just love it. And I kind of want to protect it, but I don't want to take it off because I just like it so much. But I want to keep taking it off and on with these things because I don't want to compromise that. So I just take my covers that I make and I just plop them on there. And as you can see, this is a cover that I've made using a paper pad from Michael's that was purchased last year. It was the Paris theme, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was the Paris theme. It was really pretty. And so I made the two covers, and then I made my own paper pad of, I made a folder from this paper pad too, just to kind of throw in there. So anyways, what today's video is going to be about is how I make my planners, my planner covers, because a lot of people have been asking me about them, or I've been getting messages, or just kind of like, how do you punch the holes is probably one of the biggest things that I get. So what you're going to need to do this, oh, first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Lynn. This is Subparplanning, in case you're watching for the first time. Welcome. I hope you enjoy. I hope this helps you out if you have any questions. So what I do is I have a ton of paper pads, and I'm trying to use them all up. It's part of my No Spend 2019. And if you've been watching any of my other videos, or if you've been following me on Instagram, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I don't need to remind myself of my standing firm of not purchasing. I'm trying to be good. So with that being said, it's not like I can go onto like Etsy and buy stickers, or I can't go into Michael's and buy more planners. So I have to make do with what I have, which is what I've been trying to do for the past month. And it's definitely tough, but I'm succeeding, sort of. I haven't bought anything unnecessary, so I guess that's a win. So anyways, this is going to be my cover for March. And obviously this is not a very traditional cover, but I really liked it because there was a lot of the green in there. And it was just a little bit different. So what I did was I cut these two pieces out of 12 by 12 cardstock. You can use a 12 by 12. You can also use 8 by 10. Your choice. If you like the paper pattern, use it. The reason why I like to do 12 by 12 is because I can get two pieces of my cover out of here, and I still get a couple of strips for like bookmark or something like that if I want to use it. So I cut these covers for my mini happy planner into 7 3/8 by 4 7/8. 7 3/8, 7 3/8, 4 by 7/8. So generally speaking, most of the paper pads that I have don't have double-sided cardstock. So I was pretty pumped when I realized that this was double-sided. Usually what I'll do is if I don't have double-sided, it's white on one side, I will take some kind of ink and I will stamp it, or I'll do something, because I can't stand looking at this cover and then seeing just like plain white. It just drives me bonkers. It's an aesthetic thing for me. It's my own personal thing. Again, you can leave it that way if you choose to. It's the beauty of making things for yourself. So you're going to need some kind of paper. You can use paper. You can use a napkin. You can use stickers if you want to do that. You could do whatever you want. Basically, the world is your oyster. You're also going to need some sort of a ruler to measure these things out if you need to. And that would also involve some sort of an X-Acto blade or some sort of knife blade. You will need some thermal laminating pouches. I use the Scotch brand. I found that those work the best for me. I also use the 5mm since this is going to be a cover. It needs to be a little more dense, and it's an 8.5 by 11. So usually I can fit my covers like that. And then I laminate and I cut in between. The Happy Planner covers that are made by Mambi, I believe, are 10mm. They're pretty thick. So obviously they need to be thick because they need to hold up to everyday rigorous use. Where I'm only using these for about a month or so, I don't really worry about it too much, so I figured the 5mm will probably be I think the 5mm will be fine. I tried it for my December and it didn't cause me any trouble. It held up well, so I'm happy with that. You'll also need some sort of a punch. You can either use the Create 365 Mambi punch, which is quite controversial. It's only designed to punch through 3 sheets of paper, and even then I kind of question that at times. You can also use a single hole paper punch, like a single hole punch, and then just cut your slits. You could use a levenger punch, which is very expensive, but it'll cut right through anything. It cuts like butter. You could also use the We Are Memory Keepers. They have the punch board where you can put all the different, it has all the different attachments to go into all the different planners. You can do that. It's a little more time consuming. I generally just go with this thing, and I'll show you I'll kind of talk through how that process happens. The other thing that you're going to need is you're going to need some sort of paper trimmer. I use this Recollections one. It's fine. It works for me. I like it because I can score or I can cut with it. But, you know, again, whatever you have. If you have your own trimmer, great. If you use a ruler and X-Acto knife, great. Whatever you have, you don't need to go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff. You can pretty much make a cover if you have the basics. You can even use self-sticking sheets. You don't need a laminator. And then the other thing that I have is my laminator. It's an Amazon Basics. Nothing fancy. I think it was like $18. I bought it like 4 years ago. I used it for school. It was great. I used to get all crazy and have a good time laminating my notes for school. So let's get started. To save some time, I did cut these down. Again, 7 3/8 by 4 7/8. This will be my front. This will be the inside because it's got the because it's printed on the other side. It's going to save me an extra step of having to ink it, wet it, dry it, blah 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 blah. So what you do is you're going to take your laminating sheets. And I try to keep them actually in the plastic that it comes in because it kind of keeps it dusty free. I have 2 pets, and I have noticed that their fur, despite my vacuuming and sweeping and mopping almost every day, that the fur seems to get up in there and cause some trouble. So what you do is you just take this, and I have a self-healing mat that I've had for, gosh, I don't know. I mean, I've had this thing probably for like 25 years. This thing is old. And so basically it's kind of nice because it's got everything lined up. And so what I do is I line up my laminating sheet right here. And so what I like to do is I will take it and I will line my sheet up usually on the bottom of this right here. And the reason why is because at least I know if I line it up on that line, it's straight. So I will bring this closer because I am doing this on my iPhone and you can't really, you can zoom in, but it's not as much, it's not as easy. So as you can see, the edge of the laminate is lined up here. The other edge of the laminate is lined up here. So at least I know I've kind of have it almost square. Like obviously this doesn't have to be perfect and you can line it up after you trim it, but I just try to do these things to save myself the extra step. So there's that. And then what I do, so I'm gonna get that out of the way, is I take my, kind of flatten it out a little bit, as I take my cover and I just kind of take it and I push it all the way to the edge. And I know that I've seen other people talk about this and like you really got to crank it in there if you can. And what I do is because I have this extra line right here is I line up the bottom of my planner page with that line so that I know it's straight. And then I will close this and I'll try to shove that bad boy all up in there just to make sure it's in there. So there's one. And then I take my other cover and I use these squares as kind of like a good guide for in between because I want to make sure I have enough space to cut in between here, but I also want to make sure that the laminate gets in there. And because you have so much more space on here, I usually give myself a good window to make sure that everything lines up good. And then I just kind of close it up. And then the static electricity kind of helps to hold it down a little bit. And it's super staticky right now because it's so dry and so cold. So that kind of actually, I can use that to my benefit. So as you can see, the edges are lined up here. This is lined up as straight as I can get it. This is straight because I know it's lined up and I know I cut it straight. So next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run it through the laminator. That's been running, oh, I don't know. I think it's been going for a little bit. And that's the other thing too, is you really want to make sure that your laminator is ready. So before you even trim your paper, like if you know you're gonna be able to sit there for at least 25 minutes just to get this started, it would be in your best interest to turn on your whatever laminator it is that you're using, if you're using a hot laminator. And so then what I do is, this isn't as nice as the Scotch, because I heard that I think the Scotch has like a little feeding tray, which makes your life a lot easier. So what I do is I just take my little thing and I just kind of take it. And once it has a hold of it, I don't worry about it. I just let it run through. This is super painful just to watch it. Watched pot never boils, right? Oh, I reckon you see that I screwed up a little bit. Right here, I don't know if you can see that, but it's already getting bent, but it's all right because I have enough leeway between this and the edge of that it's not going to be a problem. So I'm just going to let it ride. As everything else in life, you just got to let it ride. So, and usually what I do is I laminate this a couple of times. I go through the laminator, I take it, I flip it over once, and then I cut it and I laminate again. So I'm going to do that. I'll probably speed through that process so you don't have to watch because it's kind of ridiculous. So generally what I like to do is after I've run it through, I'll take like a bone folder, or I will take the edge of something that's not sharp, obviously, because I don't want to cut this, and I'll just kind of run it through. So what I do is I just kind of take it and I just kind of make sure that I get those edges, like I try to get everything kind of close. And so the best way to do that is to run it through the laminator and then pull it out really quick and then just do this while it's still hot. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this. I ran it through twice, this way, and then I ran it through this way. So now I'm going to get this bad boy out of the way. And now, obviously, and I know that you've heard this in other videos, but remember that when you trim this, to not go up to the edge, because you can see there's like this little line of demarcation right there. And that's where the laminator didn't quite stick down because of the thickness of the paper. So you don't want to trim up to the paper. You want to make sure that you trim where the laminate is sealed. And so usually what I do is I'll take my laminate sheet and I'll put it in and I'll line up the edge of the paper with this part right here and then cut this part. So that way I have a nice little, tiny space of a limited edge right there. And I do that on all 4 sides. So as you can see, I'm just kind of lining it up with this edge right here. Right there. I'll put it down, make sure it's nice and tight, and I hold this with a death grip. And I do that because I've cut pieces, I've cut laminate before, and the thing slips out, and the next thing you know, you've cut like a big divot, and then you've wasted supplies, you've wasted paper, you've wasted your time, and it's just super frustrating. The other thing is that some people, I have, you see that? You see how it just moved? Not cool. I have seen, you know, you can corner edge your papers, which I did for this one. Normally I don't, because sometimes I have found that sometimes the corner puncher that I use, it's a We Are Memories corner chomper. It just has a really hard time cutting through this. Even the 3mm, it still has a hard time. So generally speaking, I don't usually do that. So again, I'm gonna death grip on it. I'm pushing down as hard as I can. Get my finger out of the way. And then I just cut. And these things I actually save, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Those strips of laminate. It's kind of wonky, but I've just found that, you know, if you can use a scrap, use it. Why not? Nothing says you can't. So there. So one edge was actually that I had was the actual folded edge, which is why I only cut this 3 times. So now that's done. So what I do is I usually take it, and now instead of running it this way is how I ran it originally. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run it this way. Make sure it's in there nice and tight. And I'll show you what I'm talking about with those. It's kind of, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like, why not? If I can do it, why not? So while that's going through, although I like to try to be ready for that. So then I'll just start with this bad boy. Here, I'll wait to do that because this is kind of the whole point of doing this. This is kind of nice too because it protects your surface, whatever it is that you're using, whatever you're doing your stuff on. So that's out of the heat. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that to kind of help things stick down a little bit because it's still kind of warm. And you can do this as many times as you want. I mean, if you're feeling the inclination to do it, go right ahead. And usually what I do is I do this a couple of times. I do run it through the laminator a few times. So we're just going to let that kind of run through. And again, I'll take my hand, I'll push it down, I'll do that. Okay, so there's one cover. Actually, I think that was gonna be my front cover. I can't remember, I don't know. So then we'll do this again. And I will speed through this so you don't have to listen to me talk because it's kind of painful. There. So these are laminated. They're all set, ready to go. But they need to get punched. So this is the part that's kind of tricky. Usually, let me just turn this little laminator off because it doesn't need to be on. It's super, super hot. So now this is kind of the tricky part with the mini happy planner covers. When people make them, they'll sometimes just avoid the mambi punch altogether, which is this guy. They'll avoid this like the plague. Basically because right here it says specifically max 3 sheets. Can't use anything more than that. This is definitely thicker than 3 sheets. So what a lot of people do is they will use a levenger punch. It's a little more expensive, but it punches through this stuff like it's like tissue paper, like this is nothing. The difference with the levenger though is that the punches that it makes are short. So the levenger punch is probably about that long. Like it doesn't have this length to it. This part right here. It's probably half that. I think it's probably about that much. So, and again, it's not a problem, but for me, with the measurements that I use a mambi I use the happy planner punch. So my measurements are specifically geared towards that extra length that you get from the planner punch. So this is what I do. I literally take this, and I have to decide what's going to be my cover and what's going to be my back. So I think this will be my front. So I'm going to punch it here. And this is going to be my back. And I'll probably punch it here. Because think about it, when you have it, this is not the way it's going to be. It's going to be like this in your planner. So this is what your front cover is going to look like. When you flip it over, this is what your back cover is going to look like. I actually think that might be more fun as a back cover. So that's kind of how you have to remember when you line it up in your punch. I am not advocating that you use this punch, and I'm not telling that you have to use this. I use it myself. I haven't had any problems with it. I'm very careful when I do it. I have a method. Every punch is different. So if you have one of these and you try this, be aware that you could potentially break your punch. So with that being said, proceed with at your own risk if you decide to do what I'm doing. I'll just show you how I do it, and then you can decide whether it's going to work for you or not work for you, or if you need to go with on a different route. So this is what I do. I take my planner cover that I just made, and I will place it inside of this. Now these lines are completely useless. I just haven't used alcohol to get them off. So these lines don't mark anything. They're just there. What I generally do is I will take this and I line it up on the edge of the paper. And let me see, is this how I want to be? Or do I want it to be like this? Want it like that? Or do I want it like that? I don't know, I can't decide. I think I want it to open like this. This is going to be my St. Patty's or my March cover, so. I kind of like this on the bottom. Okay, so I have this, and I'm going to take it, and usually what I do is, because I have another planner, is I kind of look to see where it lined up. And you have this like right here, this is like where the cutout lines up. So you can take, when you're punching something, you can line it up with holes, and that you know everything else is going to be lined up with it. So usually what I do is I take my planner cover and I line it up with that, and then I just kind of look to see where it is in relation to the punch itself. So, and I literally just eyeball this. So yeah, be forewarned. There is no proper measurements or anything else like that. So what I do is I shove it in there, and it goes in pretty okay. I mean, I'm not saying it goes in great, but it goes in okay. And this is basically the time-consuming part, is trying to figure out how am I going to line up this stinker so that it lines up with my planner punch, my pages. And you can certainly take a marker to do it. I'm just going to go for it because that's how I am. I'm reckless by nature when it comes to planning stuff. I ain't scared. So you can hear me kind of dealing with this a little bit. And so the next thing you do, so now this is in, but don't punch it yet. Because what I do is I take, as you can see, this is punch 1, and then that's the last punch. And you can see the punch is actually, where it punches, it's like right there. That center part is where the punch goes down. So even if I crank this down, it's not gonna punch this. So what I do is I take it and I look at it and I try to line this up. I line up the edge of the laminate right here, this edge, with this corner right here. And I try to see how much of a difference I've got. So I've got, it's a little over a ½ inch on that side, and it's not quite over ½ inch. So this is higher than this. So what I need to do is I need to move this down a little bit. And again, the punch, when it goes down, it's going to miss this because this isn't where the punch is. The punch is in the center. So again, what I do is I take my little ruler. You gotta have some kind of a little ruler or some kind of measuring device or something. And I just look to see where the line lines up with the corner. So this part right here, this corner, to the edge of the laminate. And this is tough. This is what takes time. Because if you screw this up, you basically have to start all over again, and I'm too lazy to want to do that. That's just not going to work for me. So we're just going to move it a hair down again. And then I always just double check to make sure that I'm not going to get hit. This is actually, I think this piece of paper might be just a little too big for me. Okay, there's that edge. I'm just going to double check to make sure I don't screw that up, because that's a lot further down. I feel like this might actually be almost too big. No, it's about the same. Crazy. That's crazy. You know what's crazy? It's making your own planner cover. That's crazy. Okay. Again, I'm eyeballing this until I get this in, and then I'm going to line it up and see where I'm at. Thing is that you just shove this in there, you just start punching, you might not be able to line up your holes to match up with your planner, in which case you'll have, like, your cover will be like too high or too low, and then the planner contents will be exposed to damage. That's what you don't want to have happen. So I'm gonna push it in all the way. I mean, it's about, just go down like a tiny bit. That's about where I'm going to want to punch it. So now you can take your punch and you can just haul down and lean on it and press down. I've seen, you know, that's how some people do it. I actually step on it. It's crazy, but I feel that my feet, because I can position my foot, the ball of my foot, I can position it in such a way to punch it. And this is the part that's super scary, because if you screw this up, you can either break the punch, you can ruin the piece of paper, the laminate. So there's a lot of variables that go into this. I wouldn't recommend this. You need to try doing this, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it this punch. I'm just saying. The only reason why I use this punch is because I want that length. I don't want this to be shorter. I want that length. I like that. That's like from the edge of the mushroom, that's like 1/4 of an inch. And that just allows the planner to sit, and it gives it some length. So anyways, with that being said, I'm going to do one more check, and I'm going to put this on the floor, and I'm going to step on it. Because that's how I do. That's pretty reasonable. So again, don't mess with it too much. Put it in there, make sure it's all the way in the end. And then you're gonna listen to me crunch. And again, you take your time, and I use the ball of my foot, and I crunch down. I usually like lean against the wall or something to stabilize myself. If you have animals, they're probably going to be interested in what you're doing. And I keep doing it until I feel like it's gone through all the way, and I double check it. And I'll show you what I mean when I double check it. But for now, I feel like there's something that didn't get punched through. So I just put it down on the floor, and here it is. See how it doesn't slide out easily? That means something hasn't been punched. So yeah, it needs to be punched some more. If it doesn't come out easily, do not forcefully remove it. You will tear your paper. You gotta listen for that loud crunch. there's one. Oh, there's one. It's like cracking bones. And again, this is not what this punch is designed for. I have to keep repeating that. Oh, see? See how it's loose? Something's still not done. So what I do is I'll take it, I'll take this cover off. Oh look, those are all the other covers that I've made, that I've punched. Like little gifts. So sometimes what will happen is it'll actually punch all the way through, which it has here, as you can see. It's punched through, but there was a piece of paper that was stuck that didn't come out. So it should just slide out unless it's a clear piece, in which case I can't see it. So sometimes, there we go. So there you go. You have your punch with the mambi, way more than 3 sheets. And again, you will do this for your other one. And again, I say, if you're gonna use this punch, I know I'm repeating myself and it's ridiculous because I don't need to. You're all adults. But again, I say, if you use this method, be mindful of the punch. You know, it's got limitations, and the punches are actually getting very dull in this, so I'll probably have to buy a new one at some point if I want to keep doing this. So the other thing, and this is a mistake that I've made multiple times because apparently I can't learn after the first mistake, is this is my cover. So now, what do I want my back cover to look like? Now, most of the times it doesn't matter. However, if you had this cover and you have another sheet of paper that looks like this, if you punch this, it's another front cover. So you have to be mindful of what you're punching. You got to punch on the opposite side. So I kind of like this. I think I'm going to have it go in this direction. That looks like a foot, doesn't it? That's funny. So yeah, I think I'm going to have it go in that direction. So I'm going to put my punches here. So then I take my planer punch and I do the same damn thing. I shove it in. I eyeball it. Try to get it to line up. I use my ruler, and then I get my measurement on. Let's see. Well. I'm sorry I'm not putting this in frame, but I just need to really be able to see this so that I can see how it's lining up. But I'm trying to show you kind of like how I line it up. So there's that. That looks to be, well, not really. Not really. And this is really time consuming. This is where the part that kind of takes up a significant portion of time comes in, and it's a little frustrating because you just want to get this done and you want to have fun, you want to start playing, and you really can't because you got to take your time with this. So again, here I go. I'm going to step on it. And again, even pressure. You want to hear the crunch, crunch. You might actually be able to hear it. I don't know if the camera's close enough. And you'll find, I have found that there's certain ones that don't punch through as easily as others. And those are the ones I have to listen for. All right, let's see how that went. Nope, I think I need to punch through. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a look and see at what needs to come out. So this is where you can use your handy dandy tweezers to pull out those pieces of paper to help it. And I have done that before. I've used my tweezers to kind of help just pull that out. Because sometimes the laminate gets stuck, and so let's see. Sometimes you can see it's punched through the first layer, the piece of paper and the first layer of the laminate, but it hasn't punched through that second layer of laminate, so you can see. The only one that actually got punched through was this one on the end, but all the rest of them, they're punched through. So I put the cover back on just because I'm doing this on a I'm doing this on a tile floor, so I just don't want it to slip out from under me. And I put it back down and I do it all over again. Oh, there's one. Like I said, it takes time. And again, you can break it doing this. So be aware. Oh, that might have just broke it. Just heard a little snap. Okay. There's one. Nope. 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 Okay. Try it again. And again, this takes time. You have to have patience. And you want to be on a fairly flat surface. You don't want any angles or dents because this can prevent you from actually punching through. So you need to be on a level surface when you're doing this. Oh, there you go. Boom. That sounded promising. Yep, there you go. That was the kicker. So, there it is. Punched edges. Everything looks good. There's this little spot right here. I don't know if you can see it, where it didn't hit. So you can take your scissors, find that spot, and just clear it up. And you can see that the punch was struggling a little bit. There, all cleaned up. So there you go. So there are, oh, do I have another piece right here? Mayhaps. And you know, again, this is definitely something that, you know, you start doing this with your mambi punch and you're basically going to be buying a new punch probably every, depending on how many covers you make, you could be buying a new punch every year. And so I'll just kind of show you. Whoops. Oh my God, this is a long video. So painful. I'll speed most of it up though. There's my new cover for March. It's not really St. Patty's Day, but you know, I figured it's got some green in it, so why not? I don't want it to be too cliche. So there is that, and that is all there is to it. And as you can see, these are the last holdouts. These are the ones that are the troublesome ones. These were the most pressure needs to be applied, but you need to be really careful because by applying pressure to these three, you're stressing the rest of the punch. And I mean, I'm using this side. I have barely ever used these ones here, so I can always like put my planner cover on this side to try to give these guys a break. But this will have to be replaced. I'm thinking relatively soon because it's really getting dull. So what I do with these, and I don't do it with all of them. I have to do it with a specific thickness like this. I don't even know if you can see this, but I guess you can see the reflection. But this is about 1 inch. So what I do with these is I save them. And I can use them to make bookmarks or attachments of some sort. So what I'll do is, like what I did for this. This is just laminate. That's all this is. So I cut it down, put some adhesive tape on it, and I stuck it on there. So now I have my own little attachable thing. So because this is so sturdy, you can punch this, and you can either use like a reusable sticky tape, or you can use like tape runner, and attach whatever you want to it. And I kind of like that because it's just, again, it's another way for me to customize my planner. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I did with something like that so you can see, but I don't think I did. Oh, yeah, I did this too. Yeah. Oh, that's not good. So that's the same thing I did with this. I took some laminate, which is actually probably the same exact thing, and I punched it with my punch, and then I just attached it. Yeah, it's the same exact, it's another piece that I used from it. This is probably left over from like a laminate cover that I made. And I just put it on there, punched it, adhesive tape, ran it, and now I have a pocket. So it's just another fun way to just kind of customize or add some stuff to it without having to go out and buy those stickies and stuff like that. So there is that. I'll put my cover back on for February. Get my cover on. Shove that on there and call it good. So yeah, there's my cover for March. I might make some pockets, probably not though, because those are really time consuming, and honestly, I kind of like the pockets that I have in there. So these guys I throw away. I save these nice thick ones for another day. And that is all she wrote. So that's basically how I make my happy planner covers, and that's how I'm going to be making the ones that I sell. If I can just get my hiney in gear. But yeah, it's a little time consuming. As you can see, this is like, I don't know, I think this has been going for like 40-45 minutes. And like I said, it is time consuming. So, you know, make sure you have all your supplies set up. Make sure you're ready to go. Then you just cut your pieces of paper down. You want to laminate them and then punch it. And I think the hardest part, or the most time consuming part, is punching it, because you got to make sure that this thing is empty. You have to make sure that everything's running through. You want to make sure it's nice and loosey-goosey, because if you start punching, you could potentially, you could break it. Again, this is a tougher one to do. You can use the levenger. That will punch through like butter. And you can also use just a plain old single hole punch, a handheld punch. Punch, 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 get it done. Slit, 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 and you're good. And you have your own cover. No one's going to be able to tell the difference between a mambi punched one and a single hole punch. And quite honestly, I don't think people are really into checking your planner out like that closely. So anyways, I hope this helps. I hope this answered some questions. I will talk to you later. You, that's right, pointing right at you. And just remember, you are loved, you are wanted, and you definitely deserve to be here. Hope everything's going well. Take care. Hope you're happy wherever you are. Deuces.